Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel and a very happy Halloween to all of you. I have been reading a lot of spooky stuff this fall season and I couldn't make a fall recommendations video, so I thought why not make a spooky reads recommendations video. And I've just got a bunch of spooky texts that I want to recommend to you guys that you could read this spooky season. The very first text that I'd like to recommend to you is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe, which is The Mask of the Red Death. I read it in the ebook format on my phone. Apple Books provides you with a lot of free classical literature and you could read it for free and you could read it very easily. Now, The Mask of the Red Death is just is a short story of a very few pages. I read it in 15 minutes or less, and shame on me because I missed out on a lot of symbols and a lot of references to art and architecture of that period, a lot of historical references, and that is when you begin to see that literary criticism really comes into play. You need to have knowledge of neo-historicism or historical criticism, and you need to look into the history of the text, into the history of the author, into a lot of things to understand or really analyze a text. Okay, and when I was done with the text, I didn't really know what it was about. I wasn't moved by it. I honestly didn't quite understand the purpose of it, but upon reading a few critical reviews, I had understood that I was just very ill-equipped and very ill-prepared to read a text so wrought with meaning. Okay, it's an incredible work of art. Okay, I feel like Poe is one of the best short story writers I've ever read, and this opinion could change because I don't know, time does its wonders, right? And my intellect will grow, and I feel like it might be an opinion that changes, but I don't think any other piece of fiction has that belongs to the genre of gothic or horror has made me feel the way that Poe has made me feel with his stories. So this book is about this prince named Prince Prospero, and he's ruling over this kingdom that is more or less being destroyed by a plague, and there are many gory descriptions of the plague and the suffering that it causes. And what Prince Prospero does is he kind of builds a bunker of his own where he holds these really grand parties, and you get descriptions of these different rooms in this bunker, and just a lot of stuff happens in that bunker, and it's just amazing the way that he writes, the climax that he reaches, and it's definitely something that I want you to read right before you go to bed because it's a very short read and it'll leave you feeling creeped out and just leave you thinking about what it all really means. What is the thematic experience of reading such a text, and it'll just it'll basically think you to sleep, and it's a wonderful way to go to bed during the spooky season. The second text that I want to recommend to you is another short story by Poe, which is a text that I liked a little more than the first one that I recommended. That is The Fall of the House of Usher. I like this book a little more because I did watch the TV show adaptation of it and I really liked the show, and so I'm bound to like the book. I mean, I'm not bound to it, but I wanted to read it. I knew it would be very different from the show and I was looking forward to that. Having experienced the first short story that I read, I was more prepared to read this one, and I was more patient with reading every long-winded description. And the book is basically about our main protagonist or narrator who receives this letter from a long-lost friend, and who is the heir apparent of the House of Usher, and his friend, this long lost friend, is suffering from a strange affliction, and he has invited his friend to come over to his house to kind of keep up his spirits and make him feel better and kind of spend time with him. And our narrator doesn't really understand what this is all about because he even questions what kind of a friendship that they had and whether they were really that close for him to be going over to his house to help him recover or feel better from this affliction of sorts. And he goes over there and things seem pretty normal at first, but like I said, his climaxes are incredible. The escalation of action is incredible, and the kind of descriptions that he gives of the house, of his characters, of what really happens towards the end. It's just an incredible story, and it's something that if you're really into haunted houses, this is something you'll enjoy. Okay. And a bunch of my other books are also going to be about haunted houses, so let's just segue into that. The next book is The Haunting of the Hill House. I don't even know what to say about this. Shirley Jackson is God sent. She has written so well. The way she writes is music to my heart. Okay, it's truly so beautiful. I don't even know where to begin, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to even say anything about this book, because it's so well written. Obviously, I also read this and I got to know of Shirley Jackson because I had seen the TV show adaptation of this first, which is entirely different from the book. Mind you, both masterpieces on their own. And you know what, before we go into this, let me just read the very first page of this text to you. It matches the very first the very first dialogue narration in the show as well, and it is so eerie, it's so uncanny, and it really sends chills through your entire body. Let me just read it out to you. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there, walked alone. What? Chills! Truly chills. All I want to say about this book is that I don't think two people could ever take away the same meaning, feeling, experience when reading this book. This book is about a doctor who is a scientist of sorts and explores or experiments on paranormal events or paranormal experiences, and he kind of wants to bring a validity to his research and to his field of science, if you may call it. So to validate his entire research, he kind of rents out the Hill House, and he invites a bunch of people who have in some way experienced the paranormal or the supernatural, and he wants them to be a part of this experience or investigation of his. So one of them is Luke, who is the heir of Hill House, and then two other characters who accept his invitation are Eleanor and Theodora. She writes characters in a way that you cannot dislike them. They're just so likable. And it's not that their moral compasses are set to the right direction. It's just that their characters, her characters are just incredibly complex, incredibly well written, have all of these have so much depth within them, and there's so much psychological exploration that happens throughout this novel as they sit together every evening and all the nights they spend at Hill House. Everything that they learn about themselves, everything that they learn about the house, it's just such an experience. I could not possibly give you an appropriate review. You just have to read this season, and it will be worth it. I'm telling you. If you can't, if you feel like you haven't really grasped what this is about in your first read, sit with it, let it simmer, because it will hit you. It's an incredible psychological horror. It's so cerebral, it's so incredible. The house itself speaks to you. And anyway, so that's another book that I want you to read. Another classic that I want you to read is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is a very thin book. I read this in one sitting over a cup of coffee, and you could do the same. A lot of you probably already know what this is about, because it's more or less become a trope, and it's constantly adapted and retold in different renditions on TV, in movies, in other texts. So this is definitely something you want to read. The reason why I would recommend this is because when I did read this, I was immediately taken into its grasp. It's so well written. The very first few pages had me super curious, super intrigued, and I was honestly, I was a little I was a little thrilled by what was about to happen and about what these characters were about, what is going to come into light, just something that you should definitely check out. Another classic that I would want to recommend, because I am reading another one of his books this winter season. Last year I read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I picked this up from my library in college, and wow, was it a fun read. Now, I've heard a lot of negative reviews about this book, in the sense that the writing is very descriptive, and it's honestly a little boring to some people, and they feel like it just goes on and on for ages. But I don't know why, I really like this book. I love the way that Wilkie Collins writes. Now that I'm reading The Haunted Hotel by Wilkie Collins, I didn't think that I would pick another book of his up so soon, because I've got The Moonstone on my shelf, but I'm instead reading The Haunted Hotel on my phone in the ebook format that Apple provides, and I'm reading it, and I just cannot stop reading. I don't know why. His writing style is just, I don't know what it has me. It just has me, because he writes so well. I don't know. Other people have been like, they've not said good stuff about this, okay? And I don't know why. I just love the period, the mannerisms of the characters. All their characters, whether negative or positive, just have this impact on me, where I'm like, what? I want to know. I want to know about the characters. I want to know more, okay? No point in the entire story do I feel like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of bored, because I was reading through it all. The way he like kind of carries the story towards the end, yeah, they're a little lengthy. Like, when I started The Haunted Hotel, I thought it was like 100-200 page book, but now when I'm reading through it, it's like a 300 page book. But I don't hate it. I love it. I actually love it. I love the mystery that he brings into them. I love that there is some sort of a spiritual, paranormal aspect to it. I love that it just kind of, it kind of leans towards being like, no, there's a logical explanation to it all, and it also leans towards, oh wait, no, there was no logical explanation to what someone had seen or what had happened, and we also go really into the psychological aspect of the characters, in the sense that we know what each character is really feeling, which I really like, because I'm not a fan of these two-dimensional characters that just get spooked by certain things and then we really don't know anything about their lives. I feel like there's so much. And also, I love the way he writes about women. I read this little quote on Goodreads about The Woman in White, okay, which I really want to talk about. Although they were like really bad reviews, I was just reading I don't really want to talk about the plot and stuff, because you could probably check that out online, but I just want to tell you the experience I had when reading them, because those were like, it's a book that I want to possess in a good copy. The copy I read was, I think, an Everyman Classic, and I'm beginning to think that I really like Everyman Classics more than Penguin, more than any other classic editions that I've seen, whether it be Collins, Penguin, what's the other ones? Why can't I for the life of me remember? Wordsworth Classics, Penguin Classics, special editions, any of them. Everyman has really, because I've seen Everyman editions only in my college library, and I seem to really like the edition. So okay, so this author writes when reviewing this book, and he's given it a 5 stars. Mind you, not that I know of this author or anything about them. I'm just like, anyone who's on my side, back me up, okay? He writes, this is a story of what a woman's patience can endure and what a man's resolution can achieve. Really, like, I feel like I really felt like the female characters, they were seen in his book. They weren't just characters. The women are really seen, because even in The Haunted Hotel, there are these 2 women characters, and it's really about them, and I don't know where the story might go, but something that kind of makes me feel a little icky, but not necessarily, is, I don't know how to say it. I don't like it when men speak through women characters, like if it's a male author and the protagonist is a woman, it feels a little off to me. And it's the same vice versa if a woman speaks through a male character. On the other hand, if the the protagonist or the narrator or whoever we're seeing the story, the lens that we're seeing this story through is a man, and then he speaks of the women characters and he speaks of the male characters, and I just like the way he speaks about them. I like his language. I like the way he portrays them. I like the way he sees them. I love that. And vice versa, when a woman does it through a woman and then sees the kind of, but the other way around makes me feel a little icked out, because I feel like, I don't know what the reasoning is, it just feels off to me. And especially if I'm reading a text where a woman, I'm seeing it through a woman's lens and a man's writing it, and I just don't see the feminine present, you know, it just feels off. But I don't know, something that Wilkie Collins does. I just love his writing. Just suddenly, when I was reading The Haunted Olives, I was like, how could I not mention The Woman in White? It was one of, like, okay, so segue from this, The Woman in White, to a book that actually is very similar to The Woman in White, at least in my head. I don't have any logical basis to it. Is The 13th Tale. I can't tell you why I think it's similar, because you will have to read both, and I don't want to ruin the plot lines for you, because the thing with the books that I'm recommending to you is that the books kind of, as the plot progresses, they aren't predictable, is what I'm trying to say. Not all of them, like obviously Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde could be predictable to you, you know, other stuff that I'm, but like Poe's stories, they could be predictable in the way that you may know where they're heading, okay, but it's more like the journey, you know, the very journey of reading it. And The Woman in White and 13th Tale, the journey itself has so many things where you're like, whoa, wait, really? Or like, oh wait, what's gonna happen? I can feel like the anticipation is growing, and maybe you know, maybe you don't. That's up to you how far you can predict, how much you've read, how much you know of, you know, the patterns and way that in the ways that writers write. My little Barbie car is just hanging off of that, and it was freaking me out all this time, so I'm just gonna put it down. So yeah, The 13th Tale is one of my favorite books ever. I've recommended this in so many of my previous videos. The 13th Tale, the reason why I love this is because I read this when I was fairly young, but it was one of the first works where a writer's writing style really made me go like, whoa, this is writing, this is how words can touch your soul, this is what, like, oh my god, it strums to the music of my heart, it strums to the music of my intellect. I don't know what it is, it's like magic, it's like cocaine in words. I don't know, that was a very bad example. I don't get that metaphor, whatever, at all. Okay, so it's okay. So this book is about Margaret Leah, who's our protagonist, and I think, as far as I can remember, it's been a while since I've read this. She works in this bookshop with her father, and I think it's like an antiquarian bookshop where they sell like these really cool finds and stuff. And also she is like a biographer, and she's written like very few biographies of not very significant people, and then she suddenly receives this letter in the mail where she's asked to write the biography of a very, very popular but reclusive author. And the author claims that, you know, all her life she's given all of these interviews and said all of these things about her life, which more or less gave an insight into her life, which have all more or less been lies. So she says that she finally wants to tell the truth, and she calls Margaret Leah to kind of come and write her biography for her. I picked this book up on a whim when I was a child, and then my sister read it and she loved it. And I remember recently, like a year or so back, we were on the metro and I was reading this, and I was holding the book and she was reading it with me. And my sister's a faster reader than I am, so she's just like, you know, and we're just sitting together and reading. And this is the kind of book that I couldn't put down. I absolutely love this book. It's so well written. There's just something about the characters that had me, you know, that had me in its grasp. And I don't know if the story will maybe, you know, hit you in the same way, but it's also like there's some similarities that I draw between this and The Woman in White, which make me want to read books like this, which is like, it's just like a self-awareness thing, you know, like I know now, oh okay, these are kind of books that I enjoy, you know. So yeah, The Woman in White and The 13th Tale are the other two books that I recommend this spooky season, because these will actually make you sit down and be like a little like it's a lot of uncanny stuff, a lot of eerie stuff, a lot of okay, wow, I'm spooked stuff, you know. Yeah, so those two. And then the next book that I want to recommend is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Now this was my first Ray Bradbury. I was sitting at work and I was like reading it on my laptop because I had like a few minutes. I was taking a break between work and stuff, and it's a very short read. It's a very thin book. I don't have it. I read it online, and because I could not find a physical copy in India, and I tried to buy it online and I couldn't. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it on the internet. And so I just, okay, now this book, I picked it up because it was recommended repeatedly by one of my favorite booktubers, and she said that this was just such a joy to read. And I know that Ray Bradbury is like one of the stalwarts of sci-fi, and he's written a lot of spooky stuff too. And I was going through his stuff, and it's something that I really wanted to read, and it was such a short read, and I was at work and I was like, let's just do it, you know. So I did begin reading it. Now the book is it's about these 9 little boys in this small little town, and it's the day of Halloween, and they're dressing up into their costumes, and they're going off trick-or-treating. And when they're off and they're together and they're just, you know, rushing from house to house, they realize that one of their gang's members isn't there. His name is Pipkin, and the author goes on this whole chapter dedicated to Pipkin. Okay, I want to read some of it so that, you know, I kept like highlighting and adding little comments, because what a gem of a book. When I was reading a lot of spooky stuff this season, I was kind of feeling a little dejected because I felt like I could not put myself in, like, I just could not feel the atmosphere of the book, you know. I wasn't a part of it. I was watching it from outside of its bubble. I wanted to be inside the bubble. The feeling I get when I watch those things on TV, right? I couldn't get that while reading, and I was like, wow, am I just a bad reader now? Like, it was all very self-doubt, self-deprecation, you know. And then I read this, and I was like, wow, a writer can really, like, it really depends from writer to writer, from reader to reader, what really strikes, you know. So yeah, I've got all of this put down, so I want to, these are some descriptions of Pipkin by the author. Pipkin, oh dear Pipkin, finest and loveliest of boys, how he ran so fast no one knew. His tennis shoes were ancient, they were colored green of forest jogged through, brown from old harvest trudges through September a year back, tar stained from sprints along the dock and beaches where the coal barges came in, yellow from careless dogs, splinter filled from climbing wood fences. His clothes were scarecrows worn by Pipkin's dogs all night, loaned to them for strolls through town, with chew marks along the cuffs and fall marks on the seat. Then, like a few lines later, Pipkin, sweet Pipkin, who yodeled and played the kazoo and hated girls more than all the other boys in the gang combined. Pipkin, whose arm around your shoulder and secret whisper of great doings this day protected you from the world. Pipkin. God got up early just to see Pipkin come out of his house, like one of those people on the weather clock, and the weather was always fine where Pipkin was. What? Okay, other than that, I've got a few more that I want to mention. This one, so you know how, like, we stay in India, so we don't really get fall, and we don't really know how it feels to be in the fall season, what that means, and how it just, the experience doesn't exist for us, you know. We're living it vicariously off of people who get to experience the season. So reading this helped me experience what fall meant, you know. So just listen. The ravine. So yeah, wait, before I go into it, the story, basically these 9 boys, and they realize Pipkin isn't there with them, and then they go to Pipkin and they're like, where are you, why aren't you coming for Halloween, why aren't you joining us? I'm obviously butchering what the beauty of the writing and the style, but I just want to tell you like the basic plot line. And Pipkin basically says that I'll meet you guys at the haunted house over the hill, somewhere there near the ravine. Okay, and this is a description of the ravine. The ravine. The ravine filled with varieties of night sounds, lurkings of black ink stream and creek, lingerings of autumns that rolled over in fire and bronze and died 1,000 years ago. From this deep place sprang mushroom and toadstool and cold stone frog and crawdad and spider. There was a long tunnel down there under the earth in which poisoned waters dripped and the echoes never ceased calling. Come, 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 and if you do, you'll stay forever, forever. Drip, forever. Rustle, run, rush, whisper, and never go, go, go. What poetry, music, what? Oh my god, it's and I've written it down in the comments, like I've added a little comment to the side of it. I'm like, I think I finally feel the magic that is fall. Like I finally feel it, it's beautiful, it's truly beautiful, and I'm just. And then another one that I really want to mention is that when they get to the house and stuff, the author writes, pirate ships are a tonic, ancient forts are a boon, but a haunted house on All Hallows Eve, 8 small hearts beat up an absolute storm of glory and approbation. Beauty, truly. Like reading this was, oh my god, my heart melted, truly. And they just go off on this experience and this adventure, and it's just the perfect book for Halloween and for the spooky season, the Halloween tree. And I'm so grateful to the booktuber that suggested this to me, because mwah, and I'm definitely gonna be reading more Ray Bradbury. But that's that. Now I've got one final book for you, which is kind of, now that I've talked about all the cool stuff, it feels a little it's not that it isn't a great book, it's a great book, it's just it feels a little underwhelming, I guess, right after all of that great classical literature and just okay. But it's still a really good book, and it's for anyone that did not like those recommendations but still wants something, dark academia, something more like supernatural stuff, but also young adult, but also really cool. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I have spoken about this earlier in one of my videos. It's a duology. The second part is Hellbent. I really like this book. I read it last year. Yeah, I read it almost a year or two back, and it's a great book. It is about this girl who gets accepted into one of Yale's secret societies, which was a really cool plot point that I really liked. And in the secret society, there's a lot of forbidden magic happening, there's occult stuff that's going on, there's supernatural stuff going on, and it is a book that had me in its grasp, quite a little strong grasp, and it was something I really enjoyed. I was flipping through it, like it was really quick. I read this really quickly, and it was a really good read. Definitely something that you should read. So that's it for my recommendations for this video. But if you guys are still in want of more recommendations, there are a few books that I'm reading. I can't really comment on how good the books are because I am still in the process of reading them. The first one I've already mentioned a couple of times in this video is The Haunted Hotel. Please try that out because I'm enjoying it right now, so I don't know, you could be enjoying it too. So that's one book that I would recommend. It's by Wilkie Collins. And the second one I'd recommend, which I've read recently, is Anton Chekhov's The Witch and Other Stories. Those I think are less of horror fiction or gothic fiction and more of just really about humans and their relationships and the creepy in the mundane or the unexplainable in the mundane, and it's about that. So they're less creepy but they're also disturbing in that way, so there's that. And we've got Quiden, Stories and Studies of Strange Things, I think. Is that the title? I'm gonna put the right title up here. That's by Hearn, if I'm not wrong, L. Hearn. That's something I'm also reading. The very first story did not really have me wanting to read more, but there's been a lot of good reviews about this, so I want to get to the end of it before I make a comment. Another one that I really want to read this spooky season and with the oncoming of winter is a Christmas Carol. I have read retellings of it in like comic books and stuff like that, but I haven't really read the text, and that's really sad. So I really want to read it before the year comes to an end. And also want to read The Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, which is by something Montague James, something like that. I got through the first few. They seemed a little infantile to me. Like, it wasn't scary or creepy to me because I've watched so many horror movies and read so much that it didn't really make me feel anything. But the reviews were like massively positive, so I feel like they're like one of the best horror story writers ever. So I want to give it a fair trial. I want to read what is that a fair trial. I want to read them all properly before I make a comment. And the last one that I want to read is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I did get a copy of that at the bookstore I visit often, but it was a little expensive for me, and it is a fairly complicated and difficult read. So I don't want to get into that and give myself reading slump, so I'm gonna avoid that a little bit, just a little bit. Yeah, that. And other than that, you guys already know all my recommendations for gothic fiction. I put it up on my Instagram a while back, so I'm probably gonna give that a try too. So yeah, those are some of my recommendations for this video. See you guys in the next one.